Hi, everyone. It's lovely to see how you're feeling in the chat today, and particularly about our topic. If you've just joined, feel free to add and share in the chat box how you feel about our topic today, being in the unknown on a scale from 1 to 5. Hi, everyone. My name is Fiorenza. I'm very excited to be here today and to facilitate this panel here for you. I'm a leadership and career change and career transition coach. And more importantly, I've been leading CareerLeap for all of you, and it's been a great project, to be in and to support you all in this way. So, quick reminder: CareerLeap is a 6-week journey designed to support you where you are in your career as you're perhaps transitioning into L&D, moving into leadership, or moving from internal to external L&D. We have 3 tracks to reflect those 3 different stages that you might find yourself in. However, today's session is open to all tracks. So that's something that is very important as a skill to have and to practice day in and day out, how to be in the unknown, how to feel more comfortable with that, and how to make progress, how to move forward, even when things are not clear, or perhaps we don't have all the things figured out yet. So today we have a panel. As you might expect, we have 4 wonderful guests, and I'm gonna just give you a quick introduction of our 4 guests, and then I'm gonna open the floor to them so that we can hear in their own words about their own role and L&D journey. So we have Shaheen Ajira. We have Shaheen Ajira, who is an inclusive learning consultant and the founder of Talim Consulting. She helps organizations build learning programs that are not only effective, but equitable, accessible, and inclusive. She has a background in learning design and over 13 years experience in L&D. Hi. Next up, we have Hélène Bejani, who is a global learning and development leader with about 20 years of experience in people development. She has worked in many global organizations, different industries, with people from all around the world. We also have Mark. Mark Pratt is an L&D and employee engagement specialist. Over the past few years, his work has focused on developing comprehensive L&D and employee engagement strategies from the ground up. And we have Tara Ryan-Tedford, who recently transitioned into an L&D leadership role. And she started a new chapter there where she's really expanding on her impact. She has already designed award-winning programs, and she's now pioneering innovative learning strategies. Hi, wonderful panelists. So excited to have you. So let's kick off. And perhaps we can start with you, Shaheen, if that's all right, because I've started with your intro. Could you briefly share what your current role in L&D looks like, and perhaps what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the phrase being in the unknown as it relates to your career in L&D?
Oh, all right. I'll tackle the first one first. So hello, everybody. My name is Shaheen. I'm coming to you today from Sydney, the Gadigal land of the Indigenous First Nations in Australia. It is about 5 degrees here and winter in Sydney, so probably very different to where all of you are. I've had a very interesting journey. So I started off in sales and marketing, did that briefly. I joke about having an early quarter life crisis and figuring out I didn't want to do sales and marketing anymore. And so I did a master's in learning sciences, and since then have kind of started my learning journey. I've worked across a few different sectors. I love having different things on my plate. I get bored very easily. And so I've worked in higher ed and a university. I've worked in learning consulting firms. I've worked in social impact, scale-ups, disability organization. And in the last 12 months, I've started running my own consulting firm where I focus on inclusive design, inclusive learning, and facilitation. So that's a very quick snapshot of my journey. What do I think of when I think of pivoting? I think there were two big moments of career transition for me. The first one was being hired, kind of working as, single L&D solo people, as we all do in organizations, the one L&D person holding fort, and then being promoted for my next role as heading up and starting an L&D function from scratch for a scale up of about 350 people. So that was a huge step up for me. And then the second was obviously starting to run my own business. And yeah, enjoying the journey, taking the adventure one day at a time.
Thank you so much, Shaheen. All right, I'm going to hand the mic to you, Ellen. Could you tell us a little bit about your L&D role, how that looks like, and what comes to mind when you hear the phrase being in the unknown?
Nice to meet everyone, and thank you, Fiorenza, for inviting me here. Big question. I have a more linear L&D background in the sense that I found out very early when I was doing my studies that I'm passionate about people. So, of course, you don't think about L&D the first time you think about where you're heading. And I did a master's in human resources management, and then I got an opportunity to work for a telecom company to do my internship for my thesis, which I was doing about the learning organization when no one was talking about that. It was 2024. I know it's makes me feel old, but that's okay. And I was passionate since then. I just found my heart is in people development. And I felt this is where I can make more impact. So I worked for this telecom company afterwards for a few years. It was starting from scratch because they were going through a huge change in management. Lots of people had left. So it was starting from the beginning. And it was very exciting. And then I moved to France, where I live now. I didn't mention that back then I was living in Lebanon. And I moved to France, and I got the opportunity to work for a global company in learning and development. And then I changed roles across my career. And for the last 4 years, I've been working for a learning vendor. So it's completely different. I thought, why not try it out and see how it's like to be on the other side? I was very frustrated by the vendors that I work with. Some of you might relate if you are already in L&D. And I'm like, you know what? I need to get behind the scenes and understand how these things work. And I did for the last 4 years. I haven't chatted with you, Fiorenza, yet, but I'm moving to another role in September, going back to my heart and soul in L&D in a new role in learning where I will be like setting things up. So there are things that already started by the team. So I'm going to be taking the lead on that. Because that's my roots, and I'm going back there because this is where I feel I make the most impact. What I would just say briefly is that it has never been linear, regardless of the fact that I knew that, I wanted to stay in people development. I work in companies in different industries, different sizes, different challenges, different cultures. I think the company culture has a huge impact on how you work in learning and development. How much buy-in you have from the leadership team, how much, how does the learning culture already look like, and you need to adapt. And it's an environment that's constantly changing. Like learning today has nothing to do with the learning we did 10 or 15 years ago. We didn't have the technologies we have today. So it's constantly adapting, and it's going to continue on happening. So this topic is very timely because we are moving in an environment that's constantly moving. And there's always going to be unknown and new things to learn. So excited to dive deeper into that.
Thank you so much, Ellen, for sharing and sharing your news as well. Congratulations.
It's still ongoing. I'm not starting before September, so I'm very still trying to digest the change ongoing.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, Mark, let's hear from you, please, about what you're doing right now in L&D and what comes to mind when you think about being in the unknown.
So I actually came into L&D sort of like a lateral move, a career transition, because I used to be a teacher. So I'm originally from Spain, from Barcelona, and I used to be a teacher of English there. And I kind of transitioned from teaching children, so being with 3-year-olds, playing the clown in front of the classroom, trying to get them entertained for an hour, to transitioning to teaching adults. And that kind of set as a very solid foundation for me, because I think that in order to do L&D, you have got to have a passion for development, regardless of what it is that you deliver, regardless of what background you have and what job you're going to do. You have got to have that passion for development. And mine started with teaching. So with that principle in mind, that's when I transitioned into the L&D headspace. You know, you put your new hat on, you go into the coaching mode, and all of the experiences that I've had in the past kind of make me the specialist that I am today. So I transitioned into an early careers development background because of that background in teaching. And I now lead the learning program and the engagement program in the business that I work in at the moment. And it kind of allows you to, that background that I have in teaching allowed me to step into that zone and think of it in a completely different light to somebody who may only have a background in L&D rather than that background in teaching. I think that gives me that advantage. And the other question that you had, which was about the unknown, I think it's very interesting because unless you have the unknown, you can't progress. So you don't know what the unknown looks like, but you can't stay stuck in what you already know. And that relates to the same principle that we always say about, you know, your comfort zone and what's outside of your comfort zone. It doesn't matter about all of this wording. What matters is there something out there that you know you want to know? Go on, go and chase after it, because otherwise you're going to get stuck in the place that you are. That's how I tackle the uncertain and what you know that you don't know. Then on top of that, there's what you don't know that you don't know, but we'll get to that maybe in 10 years' time. You know, it doesn't matter about today. But you have to step into the uncertainty in order to come out of what you know, of the situation that you're in.
Thank you so much, Mark. And quite a few things that you've said there. I see lots of heads nodding. So I think it's resonating or, you know, really hitting something. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Sarah, you're next.
Hey everyone. So yeah, I guess I began my career nearly 10 years ago now in L&D within the insurance industry. And yeah, 10 years is a long time, and there's so much that has changed and developed within our industry over that time. And if I think back 10 years ago, Tara, looking at learning design, moving into delivering things like technical skills, soft skills across the UK, India, South Africa. I worked kind of more broadly across the business, gaining things like experience in leadership development, learning project management. There's so many different facets of our roles that, you know, at one point had been unknown to us in some capacity. And I think that it's just such an exciting space to work in. What life looks like for me now. So kind of 3 years ago, I transitioned into the tech sector and I knew absolutely nothing about technology. I couldn't even have told you what a software engineer did or what even software was. And I joined the team at Digital as a learning and development consultant. And more recently, at the start of this year, I moved into the L&D lead position to lead our amazing, wonderful, award-winning team. And I work really closely with our internal teams, but also some of our external clients who are based all across the world to design and implement different learning solutions that are aimed at closing the world's digital skills gap. So very ambitious role. And what I would say is the unknown, particularly working in the technology sector, is something that I would encounter every single day. And Helene put it beautifully earlier that, you know, the pace and rate of change these days is absolutely astonishing. And a lot of things are absolutely in the unknown, and I am here for it. I absolutely love tackling problems. I love thinking creatively. I love designing solutions. And I think that in learning and development, it's always been a real passion of mine to help people through those changes and make things as easy as possible for them.
Thank you so much, Tara. Thank you. Thank you to all of you, my lovely panelists today. All right, before we move into our next question, I just wanted to reiterate something that I've just put in the chat. Please, everyone, make sure that you are writing down your questions in the chat so that we can go through them today. All right, so a few of you, if not all of you, in some way or another, you've transitioned completely from something that has nothing to do with L&D into L&D, or something that has somehow some ties, or you have moved across different sectors. You have had to face this, transition, whatever it means to you. So I'm curious, what is perhaps the belief that you had to unlearn around career growth, around career transition? And how did you know that you were on the other side of it and that you had landed in this new version of you?
Is that open to everyone?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of, when we think about a career move, people think about it in a going up, going sideways sort of thing. But a career move is as unique as you are and as the role is. Every single job is different. It doesn't matter that it says L&D specialist in one company, that it says L&D specialist in another. Something that I say to people when I advise on taking the next career is do some research on the company. It does not matter what the job title says. If you're after a specific title, like I want to have the title of leader, I want to have the title of senior, then fair enough, you might be looking for the specific jobs. But what I would say is forget about what the job role says. If you align with the company, the job role will eventually become something that connects with you, because they are hiring you for you to go and tell them how to do things. They're not hiring you to essentially arrive and them tell you how to do things. That's how I apply for jobs anyway. I always look for the company, research the company, make sure that I align with it. And that's something that you have to unlearn, because we always tend to say, go and find the job that you love, go and find the job that you're passionate about. And I think that we need to change the mindset. Go for a company that will allow you to develop that role into what you feel comfortable with.
Mm. And that's so important, Mark, right? Because then we are shifting our focus on the environment, because the environment is so important for us to be able to thrive, to find the belonging, and actually, be and get to be the best in our job. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyone else would like to share?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Shane.
No, go ahead.
I don't know about unlearn, but potentially something that I had to come to terms with is that there's absolutely not a right time or a perfect checklist, and I am a massive fan of a checklist. But there's not that perfect time or that checklist that you need to tick off before you step up. And like I have always been like fairly organized with my career. I've had plans, I've had certain milestones that I thought that I'd hit before taking on a leadership role. So when an opportunity came up at the end of last year, my first instinct was, oh no, it's too soon. It's all happening too quickly. I'm not ready. I thought I'd do X, Y, and Z first. And I suppose actually, yeah, I did have to kind of unlearn that belief that being ready isn't about completing a list. Sometimes, you might have 70, 80, 90% of the things that you thought you'd have. And growth and opportunity often don't wait for perfect timing. Most of the time, there's a knock at the door. You decide whether or not you're going to answer it. And for me, I guess taking that leap earlier than what I'd expected and before I thought I was ready had helped me realize that actually I had been leading in quieter and maybe less visible ways through things like influencing, coaching, mentoring, driving forward initiatives. And I just hadn't explicitly labeled it as leadership, right? So I would encourage everyone here to reflect on some of the things you might already be doing in that space. And to add on that as well, what was truly validating for me in kind of unlearning that initial belief was hearing it from my team as well and getting a bit of feedback. that I had been showing up as a leader well before that title had changed. And that's what really gave me the confidence to stop focusing on what I thought I was lacking, but refocus on the things and the strengths that I already had.
Thank you, Tara. Yeah, there is definitely a redefining of what does it mean to be ready, feel ready, that could come into play. Thank you so much for highlighting this. Shaheen.
Well, I was going to kind of pick up on Mark's point to say, I don't think for me it's always been that L&D is not about, career is not about going up or going sideways. I almost think of L&D as, like a buffet, and it's picking up what you want. There's so many different roles that we can do within L&D, whether it's OD or coaching or design or, e-learning and facilitation. There's a variety of things. And so I've always kind of gone like, okay, what do I, in my next stage, in my next role, what is it that I want to focus on? Is it more, do I want to do more facilitation? Do I want to do more leadership? Do I want to do more strategy? So I've played with a lot of different things in my life as L&D, and that's one of the things that I actually love about this career is, being able to play. And so for me, career growth is about what skills can I pick up? What can I do? And, to my point, what from the menu is it that I'm going to have for the next 3 years or so, as opposed to thinking, am I moving up or sideways, or what's the title? Because everybody has a different title these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Shaheen.
I just want to add one thing for what Shaheen is saying. I love what you said about what skills am I going to pick up. The whole premise around learning in general is that people can develop their skills and improve in any area they wish. That's the thing that we're all trying to do. No one knows anything about L&D when they are little. You learn that. So just starting with the idea that whatever it is, you can learn it. You just need to set your mind to it, find the right solution. That's what we do as well in learning, and just learn that. So I love what you said, Shaheen, about, what skills can I pick up? Where do I want to develop? And then just explore things. I think the limiting belief that we often have is that I don't know anything about learning design. How can I pretend to even be a learning designer, for example? There are things you can learn, and don't compare yourself to others, and focus on your strengths, like Tara said. Don't focus on the things you don't know. If you don't know them, you can develop them. And if you know them, then focus on, improving it further. So just adding to what others are saying, skills can be developed. So don't be scared of going there.
And that's I think that connects very well with what Tara was saying about there isn't a right time, but the way that I always think about it is there is a right mindset. So it's not about time, it's about when you actually get your mind to a specific, attitude or behavior. That's when is the right time. Time comes after the behaviors and after the mental state. And so I think connects very well.
Yeah.
Obviously, we all have a similar background, so we would have, you'd think that we'd agree.
Yeah. We have a question that came in from Lisanne that I think really goes well with what you've been discussing. How can you balance the fake it till you make it mindset, which has helped me through a lot of new experiences that I felt anxious about, with being able to acknowledge you don't know something and move forward from there?
I have a very strong opinion about this. So essentially what you're saying is that as an individual, you are expecting yourself to know everything. Now, imagine a business with 1,000 people in it. There are dozens of teams. There are potentially, hundreds of different people with hundreds of different specialisms. Why would you expect you as an individual to know absolutely everything? How could you possibly apply the same principle that you apply to a business with potentially 50,000 employees? And even they don't know everything about what they do. So why would you apply that same principle to you? Why wouldn't you step into a zone where you don't know things and say, actually, I don't know this, but you know what I'm really good at? Asking questions. So let me come back to you on this. So it's all about the mindset, all about how you approach it.
I think I can add on that one a little bit. I probably have the same views as Mark. I'm not a massive fan of the old fake it till you make it saying. And I think actually trying to pretend that you're someone that you're not, whether it's a leader, whether it's an L&D professional in any kind of professional role, it can really backfire because humans can see it. It's almost like a little kind of sniffer dog mentality. They can sense whenever people are being, disingenuine, inauthentic. And what I would say is you don't have to change your personality or be exactly like, other people who have walked that path before or might be in similar roles. People don't need copies of someone else. They need people who are real, authentic, and consistent. And yeah, I guess rather than faking it till you make it, be authentic, be yourself, be imperfect, and most of all, just be human.
My slight reframe on that is I think of it as everything is figure outable. And so I think what you mean, Lisanne, when you say fake it till you make it is kind of in the moment, you have to do it. And so I think of it as zooming in and out. And so the example that I'm thinking of at the moment is I was brought onto an organization. They were about, they were a startup moving into scale up, completely different industry for me. And I was setting up the L&D function from scratch. And that was huge for me. I'd never done that before. And so I was making up things as I go, but I was using resources and people that I knew. And so in the short term, what I would do is, there's tons of free resources out there. So I would like look up for, how do you write an L&D strategy? What are the components? And actually look at evidence-based research on how to do that in terms of like actual resources. I'd have a chat with other people who are doing L&D and, you know, tap into my board of directors, as they say. And so that would kind of help me get through the little hump. But then I'd zoom out and then be like, okay, but this is something that I do need on an ongoing way if I'm going to do my job well. And so figuring out what those skills was, and then I'd take a step back and go like, okay, I've gone over this hurdle now because this was needed of me now and I've delivered on it. But now I'm going to take a step back and spend the next couple of weeks actually deep diving into whatever skill I need to pull up. So I think that's how I think of it as, zooming in and out of when I need a skill to deliver on whatever is needed of me. But yeah, I was always having the mindset that it's figure outable. You can figure it out. I have full confidence that all of us can figure it out. We are all L&D specialists. This is what we do.
That's a good business name, figure outable. You need to trademark that one.
The book by that name, Mark. So
What you shared, Shaheen, made me think of the support structure that can be so helpful, so grounding in moments where we are transitioning into our next role, where perhaps we are navigating the unknown waters. So what did support look like for you as you were navigating such a transition? Or perhaps what did you wish that support would look like?
it's going to sound scripted, but I'll say it. L&D Shakers. Like I've been with L&D Shakers for years now, and there's two things that have always been a huge help for me whenever I'm trying to do something new. One is because I have a master's in learning sciences, I have that evidence-based mindset. So I'll always go out and look for journal articles and like have things that are backed by evidence and pedagogy. So being able to do research and understand, so using my research skills for use. And then the other is people resources, and they come in all forms. So L&D Shakers, as all of you know, is like this amazing, generous L&D community. And I've more often than not been in one-person teams. And what that means is you need somebody to bounce ideas off, and I've made so many great friends in all my time here. So having some sort of an L&D community around you has been really resourceful for me. But then also being vulnerable. And I remember being just after I started this new role, within about 6 weeks or so, I was at this conference and was sitting at lunch with a random new person I'd met really hit it off, having a conversation, and then saying, I'm starting to build this L&D strategy. I'm a bit lost. This is what I've worked. And they literally went like, oh, I wrote a strategy 2 years ago. I'm happy to share my template with you. Just like that. And so it's developing friendships, is, tapping into the community. It's being vulnerable and open and saying, hey, I need help. Have you done this before? I think all of those have been really good things that have helped me, and in terms of like my support system of how to work through some of these things. I have no shame in asking for help, so that helps.
It's very interesting because what you say about community, it differs based on who you are as a person, what type of role you go into. So I am used to stepping in front of a room and talking to people, so I find it quite easy to go and ask for help. But for other people who might be here today who are not so comfortable going and asking for help, to potentially, stepping into a phone call with someone, that sort of mindset. What I have found very useful in the past is to speak to someone who might be outside of potentially of the L&D environment. In my case, it's my partner. He's an architect, and I go and ask him questions, and he'll tell me things about his point of view from the point of view of an architect. Sometimes, pick and choose the opinions of people, but you have to. A business would go out into the world and hire someone like Shaheen to come in and get their opinion on topics. So why wouldn't you do that with yourself as well? Before, when we were talking about positioning yourself like a business, you have to know everything, like a 50,000 plus people staff. Well, treat yourself like a business as well. Go and ask for help out there, someone that can give it to you at the same level as you. So sometimes we go and ask friends for help and family, and that's fine, you can, but you have to understand where they're coming from, because their background could be completely different, and their career experience could be, very negative in a way. Maybe they're doing a job that they don't like, and they're giving you advice from that perspective. So find the person that is going to give you the advice that you don't want to hear, sort of thing, and see what, do I not want to hear it because of me, or do I not want to hear it because of them? And then tailor which boxes you want to tick and which advice you actually want to take on board. But go out, take that business approach. I need consulting. Can somebody please consult me? You are my friend. Please help me with this.
Thank you, Mark.
Sorry, I'm just going to quickly jump in with one last thought before we wrap this up. And to your point, Mark, if you're not the kind of person who likes asking for help, I find having formal structures like joining a mentoring program or joining a coaching program gives you that formal relationship to be able to bounce these ideas off people.
On a one-to-one basis. Yeah, it's just less daunting. Yeah.
And then AI can help. And that does not judge.
That's a
I'm
great
not going
point.
to the extreme of AI being a coach or anything, but I definitely believe in coaching. Fiorenza knows that. So thank you for highlighting that, Shaheen. I think coaching and mentoring has been extremely valuable for me, because I think beyond the knowledge itself in the topic, there are several things that are in play when we are experiencing anxiety, imposter syndrome, etc. One of them is our confidence in our ability, in our competence, in our ability and our skills, our ability to perform. But there's also the underlying beliefs that are holding us back, or the things of, I'm being judged, I don't feel good enough, I'm having all this fear of not succeeding. I heard conversations about titles earlier. Titles is more of a society kind of thing that it's a way to interpret what we do, and we assign success to that. Like, I'm going to be successful when I become this title. It's not about the title. So it's just digging deeper into why are you feeling this way? What is it that you need? So for me, the support system, just wanted to add, is one part, yes, having the people, the experts, so we can bounce ideas off. L&D Shakers or any other community are massively helpful, and I've used that in the past, but also getting to know yourself further so that you can ask for help from people who coach and mentor. Could be a friend, but someone who can really help you mirror. Could be someone, like you said, Mark, outside of the profession altogether. My husband does this job as well. He's in IT, Completely different, but he knows I practice everything on him in terms of learning when I need to facilitate, just to be clear. So yeah, just broadening the support system, see what works and mix it up, I would say, but definitely think about what is it that's holding you back as well.
Yeah. So are there specific, perhaps, rituals or tools, strategies, whatever else that has helped you in managing difficult emotions that can come up, and it's human for them to come up when we live in the unknown or we navigate the unknown?
I personally go through that, the roller coaster rides very, very often. Some days it's quieter than others. Some days it's just crazy. Lately, it's been crazy. A lot has been going on. And for me, it's acknowledging the emotions when they come. And it takes some self-awareness, acknowledging them when they come, accepting to go through the emotion. Don't shut it down and remove it. Because I think putting it inside, faking it, and going in the word sometimes doesn't help. You bottle up, you become resentful, it creates some anger or other types of emotions that you could take on others. So just go through it. Yes, it's okay. Like you said, we're human. Just go through the emotion, but don't let it sit for too long either. Just nudge yourself out of it. Find what works for you. For me, it's going out in nature, walking, listening to music. Find what nourishes you, what helps you go through the emotion, and just reframe your thoughts. There's a book that I love that I swear by. It's called forgot what it's called now. It's crazy. Feeling Good. I have it here. Feeling Good. It was written by, it's a very old book, written by a psychiatrist who was trying to help his patient going through depression. Now, I know it's extreme, but it helps you go through the generalization, how we think, how humans, and then you can question your beliefs. No, not everything is bad. There is something good in all of that. We dramatize, we catastrophize, we generalize, we do lots of things, and it's part of being human. So when you get to learn these techniques, you know what you're going through. I think just let yourself go through the emotion and then find the things that give you energy, that helps you stay in motion. I think, Mark, you mentioned that as well. Action drives motivation. Get in motion and you will get there and you will get through it. That's how it works for me, at least.
I can add on that very slightly. I was introduced to a very simple formula many years ago, E plus R equals O, if anybody has heard of it before. But whenever it comes to kind of the emotion, if we think of the E as emotion plus R is your response, and that fundamentally will equal the outcome of the situation. So how you choose to respond, whether that's internal reflection, maybe asking yourself some questions, what is it about this situation, or whatever it is that is making me feel like this, and asking yourself maybe a couple of tough questions. That can be a response to yourself. It can enable you to take some sort of action, or it can be, as we just spoke about, leaning on the support network that you have around you, whether it's a leader, a colleague, a friend, a partner, whatever it might be, and talking through some of those emotions together and choosing that as your response ultimately helps shape if that outcome is going to be positive or something that might need to be revisited and maybe thought about a little bit more. So something to kind of have a think about. E plus R equals O whenever the emotions spill over a little bit.
Absolutely love that. And I love a good formula. So I've written that one down. Consider it stolen. I think that's very interesting. Actually, I always use another formula, if you don't mind just my adding another bit of maths here, which is used in coaching quite a lot. So, I'm sure that many of you might have heard this when it's performance equals potential minus interference. So whatever potential you aspire to, so, reach for the stars, that sort of expression that we always use. Can you reach the stars? If the answer is yes, then okay, you've got the potential. What interference are you experiencing? And we've already mentioned feelings, find yourself, all of this. Okay, maybe you're not quite there yet. So that could be an interference for you. So you're not going to be able to perform. Okay, that doesn't mean that you won't be able to perform to a good level, but every single one of these variables will make you to take you to a point in your career where you're comfortable. So if you're letting the interferences get a little bit too much, then you need to work on those interferences. But you're never not going to have them. Never, ever, ever. We're all capable of great things, but those interferences could be internal. It could be yourself being, imposter syndrome. Let's call it like by its name. It could be external. It could be, something's happened in the family. You have to be in hospital. Anything could happen. You go to an interview one day, the train is cancelled. It's pouring down. The bottle of water breaks inside of your backpack. Anything could happen. All of these little interferences, they're external factors. So you just have to acknowledge them and say, okay, how can I work with all of this? So just another little formula to add into that. But consider that one stolen. E plus R equals O. Absolutely, I'm going to take that on, yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, I'm also a fan of formulas, so thank you so much to both Mark and Tara for bringing that in. I want to read something that Shruti is asking. So Shruti says, I went from architecture to quilting to L&D via a 3-year stint as a human skills trainer at a digital marketing ed tech. I'm currently a single person L&D team for a 170 people plus organization. I have been here for 6 months now, and I still find multiple unknowns come up every day. How do you make time to navigate the unknown while balancing the needs of the job, especially when you have to learn things fast so that you can teach others?
Well, I've gone through a very similar experience, and I'll give you a very quick answer, which is who is setting those expectations for the job and what foundation are they basing it on? Because you are the L&D person. You have just said that you're a team of one. So in my thinking, you are the one to set expectations based on what could be going well or not. So if those expectations have been set for you, on what foundation? Question that in a healthy way. Obviously, I'm not telling you go all guns out, but question that in a healthy way and then set the new expectation for what that should look like. Work on your top 3 priorities on what could have the most impact for the least amount of effort.
Thank you, Mark. We have another question that came in from Gary. Putting aside the understanding that we need to take ownership of our own development, how have you navigated situations where your work environment, your manager, the opportunities, and so on, has been a barrier to your growth?
I can, I guess, take this one a little bit. I think I went through a huge kind of career transition whenever I kind of hit the 7-year milestone, or the 7-year itch, you might call it, in my previous organization. And I felt, really safe, really comfortable. I felt relatively well supported, and I was fully accountable, for my own growth, for my own development. I'd learned a lot, but I'd started to feel like I was stagnating, and there were a couple of blockers potentially in order for me to grow further within that role, because the opportunities were so few and far between. How I kind of balanced that realization and also the white knuckle fear of having to leave an organization that you'd been with for 7 years, where you'd built, strong relationships, you really felt close to the culture, you knew how to navigate the business, and also the thinking that the grass might not be greener on the other side. And I think it's about being really honest with yourself. Are some of these barriers within my influence, or do I need to potentially widen my net and start looking for these in different places? And for me, I had it was a massive internal struggle for a long time, and the realization that in order for me to move forward, I might actually need to sidestep a little bit. And I think Shaheen alluded to that a little bit, everything's not quite linear. Sometimes you need to move sideways before you move forward. And what worked for me was exploring opportunities with organisations externally who were pushing boundaries within the L&D space. What it meant for me was finding a role in a completely different industry that wasn't an obvious promotion, but actually the role that I found was able to offer me challenges and additional scope that I was missing and that I was craving, and were fundamentally essential to me taking the next step in my career. And throughout that process or period, given that it had been many years since I'd applied for or interviewed for another role, I was just really intentional and asked like really purposeful questions about growth. What are some of the opportunities that could potentially be available for me here? What are the challenges that you're facing? And making sure that all the things that were being said matched up with where I wanted to go and were a really, really good fit for me and would help me progress within my career. And yeah, I think taking that step and that kind of sideward step was really important to me and has actually kind of paved the path for me into the leadership position that I am in today. But a lot of it is about being brave and stepping outside of your comfort zone and being really honest with yourself about the non-negotiables that you have to have within your role in order to get where you want to be. Hopefully that's given a bit of insight.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm seeing a few questions about the imposter syndrome, so perhaps we can come back to that a little bit. It is a phenomenon. It is something that everyone is experiencing, irrespective of how junior or how senior you are in your job, in your organization. However, when we have this imposter voice kicking in, we often feel alone in that boat, right? It's just us and our imposter voice. So perhaps we can hear some examples from our panelists. When you are going through an imposter phenomenon moment, what does your imposter voice sound like if we were to really make it tangible and practical for everyone?
I can jump into that.
Yes, please.
It's there almost all the time. Doesn't go away. I learned to live with it. I would just say a couple of things. For me, I mean, the voice, how it sounds like, you know, you're gonna fail. There are high expectations. You don't know how to do this. You know, other people are better than you. They're gonna find out that they are better than you. All these things. But I would say the things that I've learned with time that I started putting in place to help me, because, you know, I want to be practical. First of all, when I get compliments or positive feedback, I take notes in a notebook. So sometimes I go and revisit that just to remind myself of my strength. So that's one thing. Another thing that I did once some time ago, and I love it. It was too powerful. I write letters for my future self when I'm in a good state. So when I'm feeling good, confident, positive, I write a letter to myself in the future because I know that this is going to happen again, for sure. And I laugh whenever I read the letters and I'm going through the imposter syndrome phase. I laugh because I know myself so well, and I write them in a way that, you know, I know what you're going through, but you know, we've got this. We've been through it before. And we made it. Remember this, remember that. And it's just for me, but it helps me a lot. Just get back to the present and change again, like reframing the thought. So yeah, just wanted to give some tips that work for me if anyone finds this helpful. Go ahead, Mark.
Essentially, what you say, what I hear anyway, is that the principles that you are applying to your clients, you're just applying them to yourself. You're just allowing yourself to do that self-reflection, which is the principle behind coaching and reflection. So what I would say to anyone who's interested in this topic and starting on that reflection journey, but not knowing where to start, which that's a good piece of advice. Write to your future self. I have done that myself, and it does work. It's really good to then go back to it. But what are you measuring yourself against? What is it? What is out of whatever skill your brain is telling you you're not good enough? What are you measuring yourself against? Are you measuring yourself on running against Usain Bolt, or are you, are you comparing yourself to a greyhound? What is it? What's your measure that you're comparing yourself to? I spoke to someone a few weeks ago, and it was a coaching conversation, and she was saying, I'm just not confident. And I was like, okay, saying not confident is a very big statement. That means a 0 out of 10. So tell me, what does 10 out of 10 look like? Oh, well, it was this person. Okay, all right, perfect. And what does 1 out of 10 look like, or 0 out of 10 look like? I know this. Okay, where do you stand in between them? probably at a 6. And I was like, okay, a 6 is closer to the 10 than it is to the 1. But unless you have a measure, you don't know what you're comparing yourself against, then, you know, but sometimes those comparisons are very unhealthy. If you're comparing yourself to someone that's like way up there in your own scale, obviously, you know, maybe the principle of your scale is flawed. So take a step back and do that self-reflection. Okay, who am I? That's a very easy question you can ask yourself. Who am I? Who are you? And when you answer that question, do you answer it in a professional way? Do you answer it in a personal way? What is it that's relevant to you for you to say to other people? Starts with that. And I can't remember who said before about starting with self-awareness. Yes, be aware of who you are, but it's very easy for me to say that, be aware of who you are. But it starts with asking yourself a question and with writing yourself a letter. Something as simple. And I was typing something in the chat before as well. How can you possibly change things if you're doing the same thing that you have done for 6 months? It will not happen. It's stepping into the unknown that you need to do.
I would add on one kind of final point there, just around kind of my own experience in transitioning into my leadership role kind of at the beginning of this year. And as Mark kind of was saying there, like, you know, the worst thing that you can possibly do is compare yourself to other people. And that is absolutely what my imposter voice sounds like. You know, you'll never be as good as the leaders that you looked up to. They were absolutely brilliant. They've been so crucial for your career and, you know, where you've been to where you are now. How on earth are you going to fill those big shoes? And as well as that, you know, you're leading people who used to be your peers. You know, what if they don't take you seriously? What if they don't buy into things? And those are two of the kind of imposter voices that I've kind of carried, you know, in my transition into leadership. And there's just two very simple things that I implement whenever the voice starts to get louder than my own voice. Number one, give yourself a break. Like a couple of words, give yourself a break, right? Why are you putting yourself under so much pressure? And the second one is having a bit of a mantra as well. You know, I am doing the best that I can here, right? And I will always try and do the best thing and the right thing for everyone else involved. And that is enough. And I truly believe that. And that is my intention for everything that I do. And as long as I have that, as long as I believe that, and might internally repeat it in my head a couple of times, that's what gets me through it. And that's what quiets the imposter voice so that I can shout louder.
Thank you so much.
I've got a
And
couple.
oh, sorry.
So I was just going to say, there's for me, the imposter voice syndrome voice comes through, especially when I started my own business, because it was just a completely new thing for me. And obviously the mistake you make is you look at all of these people who've done things, you know, started their own businesses 5, 10, 15 years ago and have like a 16,000 person following and go like, oh, I'm not like them. And obviously I'm not good enough. And so I think when we start to compare, to Mark's point, it's also worth looking at who are they and what their journey has been. So often we are at the start of the race and they've been, you know, in the race for years. And so cutting ourselves a bit of slack to be like, you know what, you've just started, in 5 years, you'll be there, but why put the pressure on yourself now? And the other thing that I also do is I think back, not just in terms of work, but I do crazy things all the time, just like traveling alone or do improv or like learn new skill every year. And in my times of imposter syndrome voice taking over, I go like, remember that time where you were stuck in Paris without accommodation for the night and you figured it out? Like, you can do this. So it's building up your self-confidence to be like, you've done this in the past in a variety of ways. You are capable. You are enough. And take that voice to whatever you're doing at work.
Other
Thank
people
you so
will be
much.
able to support you on that as well and will remind you, hey, remember that time? But obviously you need to surround yourself by the right people as well. Sorry, that was just a little comment.
No, absolutely. I'm really loving all those tips and strategies that you've been sharing. Like some of you said, you have to find tools, ways that work for us. That's very important. And I think there is inspiration to be found in hearing what it looks like for others, and also in hearing examples of what your imposter voice sounds like. even when you have so many years of experience in the field. I'm conscious of time, and I would like to squeeze in one more question, if that's all right. Antonia is asking, or is saying rather, many people switch to L&D or other fields because they either have a passion, natural talent, or because their background makes the transition easier. What advice would you give to someone who isn't sure what they want to do next, but knows they want to grow and move on from their current role? What might help them decide which unknown paths to explore? Anyone has any thoughts on that? Yes, please, Mark.
There's this exercise, and it's actually become quite controversial for some reason, but it doesn't matter. The principle of it is really good. It's called the ikigai. It's this Japanese concept. And, regardless of what the news say about whether this one created it or that one created it, it doesn't matter. The principle of it is identifying what you like, what you're good at, and what you can sell. And essentially, when you're employed by a company, you are selling your services to them in exchange for a salary. So doing something like that bit of self-reflection would be really useful. I would say that's step number one. And all it takes is 5 minutes. You can probably find a website that does it for free. And just say ikigai. And I'll type it into the chat. I think it's spelled like this. And it's just finding out who you are, what you're good at, and what you can sell. And then you can start talking about yourself in that way and make a conscious effort to talk about yourself in that way. Starting point.
And then I'll add to, like, and ikigai is a great exercise, love it. Once you've done that and figured out what you're good at, what you can make money off, and what, there's another thing. Once you've figured that out, what I do from next stage on is go and look for job ads and skills that you can build in your current role while thinking of your next role. So you don't need to deep dive into that now. I'm always thinking one role ahead. And so while you're doing your current role, try and figure out, okay, now I know that this is what I want to do. Let's say coaching. Okay, what are the skills I need for coaching? How can I build those resources? Start to look for job ads for coaches and what are the skills they need so you can start to match that up. So that's a strategic way of starting to think about, okay, what are my next steps once I've figured out what I want to do?
I would just add, don't be afraid to go for interviews, even if you're not interested in a role. I love what you said, Shaheen, but I constantly say that to build your employability constantly, you need to know what's out there, what's needed. And talking to someone is a good way to find out whether, like, there are some interviews where, like, oh my God, I definitely would never want to do this. Or I love this part of the job. Tell me more about it. It's selfish, but it's a way to also explore beyond just reading. Sometimes the job posts are standardized, but just talking to someone, I think, helps. Yeah, just wanted to add that. Don't be afraid to go out there, explore what's there, talk to people.
Thank you so much to Helen, Tara, Shaheen, and Mark for your generosity today and sharing all those insights, tips, experiences. It really means a lot to all of us. Thank you everyone in the audience today as well for your presence, engagement, all the questions that you had come through. I'm sorry we have not had the time to answer all of them. We do have a LinkedIn group and a Slack channel and community for L&D Shakers. So my invitation is to join us in there if you're not already in there, so we can carry on this conversation perhaps amongst all of us, if that's okay. I'm gonna just drop in the chat our Luma calendar where you can find the other events we have for Carol Leap. And once again, thank you all so much. Thank you very much, our lovely panelists. You've been amazing. Have a great Friday and weekend whenever that comes. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.